What if some of your most intimate thoughts, emotional responses, and relationship patterns weren't entirely your own? What if they were echoes, ancient, unconscious, and archetypal, passed down through generations of human experience? According to Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung, the human psyche is shaped not only by personal history, but by a collective unconscious, a vast, inherited memory bank of symbolic patterns. And within this shared psychic inheritance lie archetypes, universal blueprints of human behavior and identity. Among the most powerful and often disturbing of these archetypes are those tied to the feminine: the mother, the maiden, the seductress, the crone, and their darker counterparts. Jung believed that understanding the female psyche meant grappling with forces that are both deeply creative and potentially destructive, forces that society often ignores, suppresses, or romanticizes. In this video, we're going to explore the uncomfortable truths Jung revealed about the female psyche, truths that challenge our modern assumptions and dive into the depths of the unconscious. We'll examine how the inner feminine, known as the anima, affects both men and women, how the mother complex can unconsciously govern a woman's emotional world, and how neglected maternal archetypes ripple through generations. We'll also face the shadow, the repressed aspects of the feminine, and discover how individuation, the process of becoming whole, requires integrating both light and dark. These insights are not meant to label or condemn, but to illuminate, because only through understanding the unconscious can we begin to free ourselves from it. Let's begin. Carl Jung proposed that every human being carries both masculine and feminine psychological elements, regardless of their biological sex. For men, this inner feminine is called the anima, a deeply influential archetype that resides in the unconscious. While it might sound mystical or abstract, the anima plays a concrete role in shaping a man's feelings, moods, relationships, and even his creativity or spirituality. Jung believed the anima isn't just a fantasy or symbol. It's a psychological reality, a mirror of all the impressions a man has ever had of women, going all the way back to his relationship with his mother. The anima evolves in stages. She might begin as a seductive or idealized figure, then later mature into a source of inner wisdom. But until a man becomes conscious of his anima, she tends to control him from the shadows, projecting unrealistic expectations onto the women in his life. So what does this have to do with the female psyche? Plenty. While the anima primarily belongs to the male psyche, her power affects women as well. For one, women are often the targets of anima projections, idealized, demonized, or misunderstood, based on unconscious images that have nothing to do with who they really are. This can lead to relationship dysfunction, emotional manipulation, or deep psychological frustration. But Jung also recognized that women possess a corresponding masculine archetype, the animus, which we'll explore later. The key point here is that our inner psychic landscape is never truly one-sided. And when these inner figures are denied or unexamined, they take control in indirect, often disturbing ways. For women, the anima can also appear as a projected image from fathers, lovers, or society at large, shaping how she thinks she should behave, feel, or relate. This psychic pressure can be subtle yet suffocating, especially when it reinforces outdated or idealized notions of femininity. Jung's disturbing insight was that much of our psychological suffering, especially in relationships, stems from our ignorance of these inner forces. We don't fall in love with a person. We fall in love with our own anima. We don't reject someone for who they are, but for how they fail to match our unconscious expectations. The path forward, Jung believed, is awareness. By recognizing and integrating the anima, we stop projecting and start relating. We begin to see others, not as symbols of our inner world, but as they truly are. One of Jung's most haunting contributions to psychology is the concept of the mother complex. a deep, often unconscious emotional imprint left by one's early relationship with the mother. While this complex can manifest in both positive and negative forms, it's the negative mother complex that carries the most disturbing implications, especially when left unresolved. Jung observed that the mother is not just a real person, she is also an archetype. She represents the origin of life, the source of nourishment, care, and emotional regulation. But when the mother fails in these roles, whether through neglect, control, emotional instability, or inconsistency, the image that forms in the child's psyche becomes distorted. In the case of the negative mother complex, this inner image is not nurturing, but devouring. The dark mother becomes a figure of manipulation, guilt, fear, or emotional dependency. A woman with this complex may internalize beliefs that she is never enough unless she pleases others, that autonomy is dangerous, or that she is somehow responsible for the emotions of everyone around her. For many women, the negative mother complex expresses itself through chronic self-sacrifice, perfectionism, or deep guilt for asserting independence. It may also manifest as difficulty trusting other women, especially maternal figures or authority figures, and even as an unconscious repetition of the same dynamics with one's own children. In some cases, this complex takes a more aggressive form. The inner mother becomes critical, shaming, or emotionally cold, projecting internalized pain outward in the form of judgment, resentment, or a fear of intimacy. This is the woman who sabotages nurturing relationships, who cannot receive love without suspicion, or who feels trapped in the role of caretaker, secretly resenting the very people she serves. Jung also noted that the negative mother complex can affect men, often through the anima. A man who was raised by an overbearing or emotionally volatile mother may unconsciously seek out partners who mirror this dynamic, recreating cycles of control, passivity, or emotional chaos. His inner feminine may be split, partly seductive, partly punishing, leaving him emotionally divided and unfulfilled. At the core of the negative mother complex is a profound inner conflict, the desire for nurturing and safety entangled with fear, guilt, or resentment. This emotional double bind keeps many women stuck, either in roles that deny their true selves or in rebellion against maternal patterns they haven't yet fully understood. Healing this complex is not easy. It requires confronting painful emotional truths and often re-evaluating family narratives. Jungian therapy encourages individuals to differentiate between the real mother and the internalized archetypal mother, between personal experience and mythic imprint. Only by making the unconscious conscious can we begin to dissolve the power of this inner tyrant. And only then can the feminine psyche begin to reclaim its full strength, not as a reaction to the mother, but as a true expression of self. Among Jung's many insights into the psyche, one of the more quietly disturbing is the archetype of the neglected mother. This isn't simply a woman who was physically absent from her child's life. Rather, she is an image, an internal psychic figure, that symbolizes emotional abandonment, unavailability, and the aching void where nurturing should have been. The neglected mother archetype is not as loud or dramatic as the devouring or controlling mother, but she is just as impactful. Perhaps even more so because her absence is felt as an invisible wound. She represents the love that never came, the warmth that wasn't offered, and the gaze that never truly saw the child for who they were. Jung understood that the psyche responds not only to what is present, but to what is missing. In the case of the neglected mother, the child develops in the absence of consistent emotional attunement. There may be food on the table, a roof overhead, and a semblance of care, but something essential is missing: presence, empathy, unconditional love. This void often creates what psychologists now refer to as an emotional hunger or an attachment wound. In women, this can manifest as a compulsive need to be needed, to perform worthiness, or to parent others as a way of receiving the love they never had. In some cases, it leads to emotional numbness, a belief that needing anything at all is a weakness. In men, the neglected mother may result in a deep longing for nurturing that gets projected onto romantic partners. Often these men alternate between idealizing their partners and withdrawing emotionally when those unrealistic needs aren't met. The image of the nurturing mother haunts them, but it was never fully embodied in their early lives, and so it remains elusive. But this archetype is not just personal, it's cultural. In patriarchal societies, the feminine has often been devalued, dismissed, or treated as secondary. The nurturing, life-giving aspects of the feminine are pushed to the margins, and with them, the archetype of the mother becomes fragmented and neglected. This creates a collective psychic atmosphere in which emotional connection, caregiving, and vulnerability are undervalued, even ridiculed. In myths and fairy tales, the neglected mother often appears as the grieving goddess or the withered queen. Think of Demeter in Greek mythology, mourning the abduction of her daughter Persephone and allowing the world to fall into winter. Her neglect is not by choice, it's the result of trauma. Yet her withdrawal carries enormous consequences. The world withers, life halts, growth ceases. When a woman internalizes the neglected mother archetype, she may feel emotionally barren or incapable of nurturing, not because she lacks love, but because no one ever showed her how to receive it. She may become the strong one, the caretaker, the overachiever, roles that look powerful but are often defenses against a deeper wound. Healing the neglected mother archetype involves reawakening the inner feminine, not as an external caretaker, but as a source of self-nourishment. It means reparenting oneself, learning to hold one's own emotions with compassion, and embracing the grief that comes with what was never received. In Jungian therapy, this often involves dialoguing with the inner mother figure, asking what she needs, what she fears, and what has been forgotten. Through this symbolic relationship, the psyche begins to repair itself. The neglected mother is no longer a ghost in the background, but a living part of the inner world, finally given a voice. By facing the silence and absence within, we begin to fill the void, not with noise, but with presence. And in that quiet reconnection, the neglected mother can transform from a figure of pain into a vessel of healing. Carl Jung believed that each of us carries a shadow, a part of the unconscious where we bury the traits, emotions, and impulses we reject or deny in ourselves. These can be primitive, shameful, or simply socially unacceptable. But the shadow isn't inherently bad. It's simply everything we have disowned, and that includes powerful, vital parts of the self. When it comes to the feminine psyche, the shadow can be especially complex and often disturbing, because society has long imposed rigid ideals on what it means to be a good woman. Traits like gentleness, selflessness, beauty, and emotional warmth are rewarded, while others, anger, sexual autonomy, ambition, assertiveness, are suppressed. Over time, these rejected traits accumulate in the unconscious, forming a dark mirror of the self, the feminine shadow. This shadow is not just personal, it is cultural and archetypal. It includes figures like the femme fatale, the dark sorceress, or the mad woman in the attic, images of women who defy convention, who threaten, seduce, destroy, or disrupt. These archetypes have historically been feared and demonized, but Jung would argue they represent aspects of the feminine that must be reclaimed and integrated, not banished. For women, confronting the shadow often means coming face to face with internalized shame, jealousy, repressed sexuality, or rage. These are the emotions that are usually hidden beneath the surface, sometimes expressed in passive-aggressive behavior, self-sabotage, or projections onto others. The disturbing truth, as Jung saw it, is that what we do not face in ourselves, we unconsciously project onto others. A woman who has repressed her own assertiveness may label confident women as arrogant. One who has buried her own sexual desires might judge other women as too much or shameless. These projections keep the shadow alive and active, but outside of conscious control. Men also experience the feminine shadow through their anima, the inner feminine figure discussed earlier. If a man has not integrated his anima, he may be haunted by seductive or destructive female figures in his dreams or fantasies, projecting his disowned emotions onto real women, often without understanding why. The work of integrating the feminine shadow is not easy. It requires brutal honesty, self-compassion, and a willingness to sit with discomfort. But it is also a gateway to immense power. What was once hidden becomes a source of vitality, creativity, and psychological strength. As Jung wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." When a woman begins to reclaim her shadow, she stops seeking approval and starts living in alignment with her whole self, not just the parts that are pleasing or socially acceptable. She becomes more rooted, more resilient, and paradoxically, more capable of authentic connection. The shadow is not the enemy, it is the unclaimed self, and only by turning toward it, not away, can the feminine psyche become truly whole. In the context of Carl Jung's psychology, the process of integration and individuation is one of the most profound journeys a person can undertake. Individuation refers to the lifelong process of becoming the person one is inherently meant to be, a journey toward wholeness. It is the act of integrating all parts of the self, the conscious and unconscious, the light and dark, the masculine and feminine, into a harmonious whole. For women, this process is deeply tied to embracing all aspects of the feminine psyche, including those that have been repressed, neglected, or denied by society. Jung believed that the psyche is inherently split into opposing forces, often represented by archetypes like the anima and animus, the shadow, and the various maternal figures we've explored in earlier chapters. The goal of individuation is to reconcile these opposing parts, not by denying or rejecting them, but by understanding and accepting them. This process requires a confrontation with the unconscious, a brave willingness to face the inner truths that we often keep buried. And it's through this confrontation that a person becomes whole. For women, individuation involves a crucial reconciliation with the feminine elements within the psyche. Often, society pressures women to fit into predefined molds, whether that be as the nurturing mother, the dutiful daughter, or the selfless caretaker. But these archetypes are not the full expression of the feminine. A woman must engage with and integrate all aspects of the feminine, both the light and dark. This includes confronting the repressed anger, the desire for autonomy, and the untapped potential that resides within the unconscious. The first step in this process is acknowledging the inner feminine and its connection to both personal history and the collective unconscious. The anima, Jung's representation of the feminine in men, exists within women as well, and it plays a critical role in shaping how a woman sees herself, how she relates to others, and how she finds meaning in her life. By recognizing and integrating this inner feminine, a woman can transcend the limiting and outdated societal projections of womanhood and access a more complete, authentic self. For women, individuation often involves breaking free from the oppressive, idealized expectations of femininity and stepping into a fuller expression of their own psyche. This includes accepting and embracing their sexual autonomy, ambition, assertiveness, and emotional complexity. These traits, once deemed unacceptable or unfeminine, are often part of the shadow, lurking in the unconscious. The individuation process requires confronting this shadow and understanding that it is just as much a part of the self as the qualities deemed acceptable by society. As the individual becomes more aware of these unconscious forces, she moves through the stages of individuation, gradually integrating these once hidden parts into her conscious life. This process is deeply transformative and liberating. It is also empowering, as it allows the person to access a deeper well of psychological strength and creativity. The individual no longer has to rely on external validation or societal approval, because she becomes internally validated by her wholeness. The final stage of individuation is marked by the realization that integration is not about perfection, but about balance. It's not about becoming an ideal or conforming to expectations. It's about embracing all the contradictions that make up the self. The harmonious integration of the anima, the shadow, the maternal archetypes, and the neglected parts of the psyche results in a strong, authentic sense of self, a self that can move through the world with purpose and resilience. Individuation is a journey that requires constant work, introspection, and courage. For women, it's a journey that involves the reclamation of the full spectrum of their feminine nature. It's about coming home to the self and stepping into the power that lies within, untamed, unapologetic, and fully alive. It is through this process that the feminine psyche becomes truly whole, capable of embracing both the light and dark, and finding true fulfillment in the world. As we've seen throughout this exploration of Carl Jung's psychological insights into the feminine psyche, the journey toward understanding and integrating the unconscious is not an easy one. It requires us to face uncomfortable truths, acknowledge the archetypes and shadows that influence our thoughts and behaviors, and ultimately reconcile the contradictions that make up the totality of who we are. For women, this process is particularly vital. It is not about conforming to societal expectations or striving to fit a narrow mold of what femininity should be. It is about reclaiming the full spectrum of the feminine, embracing both the light and dark, the nurturing and destructive, the gentle and fierce. By doing so, we unlock the power to live authentically, to form healthier relationships, and to embrace our own unique path toward individuation. The truths Jung uncovered are not meant to label or shame, but to liberate. They offer us the opportunity to transcend the unconscious patterns that have shaped us, and instead, step into our true selves, whole, integrated, and empowered. The feminine psyche is not something to fear or control, but something to understand and embrace, for in its depth lies untapped wisdom, creativity, and strength. So, whether you're a man exploring your anima, a woman confronting her inner archetypes, or simply someone seeking a deeper understanding of the psyche, remember, only through awareness and integration can we begin to break free from the unconscious forces that shape us and step into a more conscious, liberated existence. Thank you for being part of this journey. May the wisdom shared here guide you as you traverse the ever-unfolding path toward inner unity, where the quest for self-discovery and wholeness reveals the deeper truths of your existence.